What happens when one of the most peaceful borders in modern history suddenly becomes ground zero for an economic clash? A border that once symbolized harmony, trade, and trust is now the front line of a tariff war that could reshape the entire global supply chain. Sounds like fiction? Well, welcome to North America's new industrial battlefield, where steel and aluminum are the weapons of choice. Let's break down what's happening between the US and Canada, and why this isn't just a trade tiff, but possibly the biggest shakeup in decades for how North America does business. 1. The 50% tariff bombshell. In late March, U.S. President Donald Trump shocked both allies and rivals by doubling existing tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, from 25% to a staggering 50%.
We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs on steel into the United States of America, which will even further secure the steel industry in the United States. Nobody's going to get around that.
This wasn't just aimed at traditional adversaries like Iran or China. This time, the hammer came down on close allies too, including Canada, Mexico, and members of the G7. Trump justified the move using the Section 232 National Security Clause, saying, "Strong trade means a strong military. Weak steel is no different from weak borders." The fallout? Immediate. The US dollar index jumped over 1% that day. Futures trading on the Chicago Metal Exchange hit their upper limits. In Detroit, automakers scrambled to secure raw materials. What could this lead to? According to economists, this kind of shock can send industrial supply chains into chaos. There's a real risk of job losses, factory slowdowns, and inflation spikes, especially in metal-heavy sectors like automotive and defense. 2. Canada strikes back. Metal curtain comes down. Ottawa didn't stay silent. Within hours of the announcement, Canada declared its own countermeasures. Steel and aluminum tariffs shot up from 25% to match the U.S. rate of 50%. But here's where it gets interesting. Canada added automatic tariff escalation based on ongoing negotiations. What does that mean in plain English? Instead of waiting for government approvals, tariff levels will now rise or fall automatically depending on progress in bilateral talks. It's like a thermostat for trade tension. Possible consequences? There is an opinion among trade analysts that this move gives Canada serious leverage. It allows Ottawa to act quickly without red tape and could force the U.S. to come to the table faster than usual. 3. Strategic redesign. Canadian procurement and quotas. In a press conference, Canada's Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne introduced 2 key tools. Public procurement filter. All federally funded infrastructure must prioritize Canadian-sourced metals. This includes everything from defense ships to prairie railways. Origin-based quotas. Tariff quotas will be tied to where the metal was melted and cast. If your U.S. steel contains Chinese raw material reshaped in Mexico, sorry, that loophole just closed. What could this mean long-term? According to experts, this could lead to a renaissance of Canadian steel manufacturing. It's possible that new local factories will open to fill these gaps, potentially adding thousands of new jobs and reducing dependency on foreign inputs. 4. The ports back up, and so does the economy. Shipping containers are already being turned away at Vancouver and St. John. Goods waiting at the docks are now stuck in limbo, especially those affected by retroactive tariffs that go all the way back to January 1st, 2025. What are experts saying? According to supply chain analysts, this backlog could ripple through the entire manufacturing ecosystem. Car plants in Detroit may face production halts. It's possible that prices for consumer electronics and vehicles could rise due to shortages and delays. 5. Financial lifeline. The $10 billion BETCO program. To soften the blow for its industries, Canada launched the BETCO, a $10 billion package offering low-interest loans up to $50 million per company. But there's a catch. Firms must present a plan to shift their supply chains to within Canada's northern border. So what's the thinking here? According to economists, this goes beyond emergency relief. It's a push for nearshoring, bringing manufacturing back home or closer to home. Over time, this could reduce reliance on foreign imports and make Canada's industrial base more self-sufficient. 6. Real-time monitoring, sectoral action tables. Think of it as a war room. Canada has set up 5 sectoral tables for steel, aluminum, automotive, machinery, and infrastructure. Each group includes government, union, and business leaders who meet weekly to monitor prices, capacities, and trade flows. They can even recommend immediate tariff adjustments. Why does this matter? According to industry insiders, this is the first time Canada has adopted a pandemic-style emergency response system for heavy industry. This could become a permanent feature of economic policy, giving the government real-time tools to avoid supply disruptions. 7. Washington's reaction and internal pushback. The White House called Canada's response unnecessary and hinted at a WTO complaint. But not everyone in the U.S. is on board. American automakers and aerospace giants like Boeing and SpaceX depend on Canadian alloys. The Michigan Steel Producers Association warned that the U.S. might be shooting itself in the foot. What's the risk here? There is a version that this internal backlash could force Washington to reconsider its hardline stance, especially if inflation rises or key industries face raw material shortages. 8. The July 16th deadline, markets on edge. The U.S. and Canada have agreed to a 30-day negotiation window, with a progress review on July 16th and a final decision by July 30th. Traders are holding their breath. In fact, premiums for hot-rolled coil contracts out of Cleveland have hit record highs. What could happen? According to market analysts, this is creating a massive hedge. If talks fail, prices will spike. If they succeed, traders could face losses. Either way, uncertainty is shaking market confidence. 9. Domestic politics in Canada, delays and criticism. Opposition parties in Canada have criticized Prime Minister Mark Carney for not acting fast enough. Why wait until July 21st to enforce tariffs? The government argues it needed time to align with global partners like the EU, Japan, and South Korea. Why is this important? There is a view that Canada is trying to build a global alliance against trade volatility. This could turn a bilateral spat into a wider coalition-based response, potentially putting more pressure on Washington. 10. Melt cast rule, traceability and national security. One of the most overlooked elements of Canada's response is the melt cast origin rule. In short, the place where metal is melted and where it's cast must be traceable and, ideally, within the same value chain. Importers now need chemical analysis reports and dual traceability forms to enter Canadian ports.